meeting of the Social Connectedness Task Force to order at 11:36.
This conference will now be recorded.
Do I need to re-say that, Barbara? We good?
No, you're fine. Yeah.
All right. First order of business will be roll call.
Commissioner Lutz,
Here.
Commissioner Caldwell,
Here.
Commissioner Nelson.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Since this is our very first task force meeting, there'll be no need to do approval of the minutes. So I'd like to go on now to the approval of the agenda. Is there any changes made to the agenda or corrections? All right. Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move the
So
agenda.
moved.
Moved
Support.
by Commissioner Kowal. Support, was that you, Cam?
Yes.
That was Robert Jones, but that's okay.
Oh, Robert Jones. All right. Support by Robert Jones.
That works.
I
All
would
those
like to
in
just,
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Gershenson. Can I get an agenda sent to me? I don't have one. Thank
sending
you.
out.
All righty. So moved by Commissioner Kowal and seconded by, was that Robert Jones?
Yes.
Madam
Excellent. All
Chair,
those- Yes, ma'am.
sorry, I believe based on the previous task force structures, the voting power have only the commissioners. So.
All right, then. I will
would
rescind my support then.
I will
Okay,
support.
so moved
I'll
by
rescind my
Commissioner
support.
Kowal and supported, or second by Commissioner Looms. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Great, motion carried. Next, we'll move on to public comment. Is there anyone from the public or on our public line who'd like to address the task force?
Yes, we currently have one. He's on the caller right now, and I will set the timer for 3 minutes. Sir, you can announce your name and what community you're from.
Hi, this is Paul Cullen, currently president of the Bloomfield School Board of Bloomfield Hills. So, first of all, I want to thank you. I think it's half for helping our seniors in isolation. Definitely think it's something that, as a representative of our school district or just as a community member, what I wanted to say is, you're probably well aware, not just as a district, but there's a lot of student groups, whether it's Helping Hands Network, Big Buddies, that some of our students have started in addition to the district. I'd like to connect and see how, who is in need, not just in Bloomfield, but in, Greater Oakland County, and how we could connect our students and our district to help those in need right now. So I know the moderator has contact details. Some of you probably have my contact details on the task force. So I'd be happy to connect it and see how we can help as a community, with a lot of our seniors, what they're going through right now.
Well, I appreciate your interest in the task force, and I look forward to hearing from you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good luck with the rest of your meeting.
Thank you. Is there
Ma-
anyone else who would like to?
No more callers and no more email submissions.
Excellent. Seeing that, I will close public comment and we'll now move on to our regular agenda. Our first agenda item is going to be our task force introduction. Barbara, do I need to do a vote on that? Nope. Okay. All right.
If yes, blame me.
All right, I like that. Well, I want to first say welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for your interest and your participation in this task force. I was overwhelmed with the amount of interest and passion that people have in regards to looking at tackling senior isolation. As we all know, senior isolation and loneliness has always been a pressing issue. In light of COVID-19, it's only exacerbated this pressing health concern. So I am thrilled to be on this task force. I'm thrilled to have Commissioner Kowal and Commissioner Lubes helping lead the way, and in addition to all of you, because I think we all can agree there's some things that we need to make some action on immediately, in addition to There's going to be solutions that we'll talk about that might not necessarily be something that we'll immediately execute, but I definitely want everybody to please feel free to communicate and share your solutions, your ideas, because ultimately at the end of the day, we've got an awesome group of people on this task force who come from varying different aspects throughout our communities. And I'm looking forward to hearing and learning more about you and the solutions and ideas that you have. So I'd like to take this time now and let's start with, we'll just start right at the top. I don't know if the top of my screen is the same as everybody else's, but let's start with Commissioner Penny Luz.
You're mute, Commissioner.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I've been a county commissioner since elected to 2018. I was previously the mayor in Clawson for 10 years. I presently work for Easter Seals, social worker and a clinical supervisor. And I'm on the Area Agency on Aging Board of Directors. So I do have an interest in taking care of our seniors. I take care of my dad, who's almost 92, very mobile, a smart fella, still with it. So looking forward to seeing how we can help others. Thank you.
Excellent. I just want to say one thing really quick. As you introduce yourself after you're done, if you want to, please share, a few things that you wish to look at accomplishing or any solutions that you'd like to talk about. So Penny, sorry to interrupt that introduction piece of yours, but can you share some ideas that you might have?
Well, I know Area Agency on Aging began in Washtenaw County with calling seniors. So maintaining contact with seniors and hearing what they need would be a place to start.
Excellent, thank you. Very happy to say that we have our Representative Mari Manoogian. Good morning,
Hey.
Mari.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. I'm Mari Manoogian. I represent Birmingham, Bloomfield Hills, Bloomfield Township, and a portion of West Bloomfield in the State House. I too was elected in 2018. And on a personal note, I have a grandmother who is in her late 90s who lives in an assisted living facility in West Bloomfield and has had dementia for nearly 20 years now. And so this is a challenge that my family has faced since I was a little kid. She lived with us for a while. And so, we're acutely aware of some of the issues that our seniors are facing. And in a personal way, have had some conversations with family members, particularly about how this issue is impacting my grandmother. And even though she, struggles with her short-term memory, being isolated and away from us for this period of time has been very difficult on her. And I know in a personal way just how difficult it is for other families in our community. Something that I thought was really great, it was kind of hard to hear him, but Paul Colin is the president of the Bloomfield Hills School Board, someone I'm very close with. And what's been awesome to see is just our young people stepping up in the community to continue to make contact with our seniors and making sure that they're still able to, have thoughtful conversations and make sure they're able to make personal connections, which are so very important for mental health, both for our young people and for our seniors. And so something that I think that we could focus on or have some sort of emphasis is continuing to make those partnerships between our young folks and our seniors. The Birmingham Next Senior Center does a really great job of that. Actually, my sister went to preschool in Midvale Center there. And one of the great things they were able to do, and obviously we can't do this now because of COVID, but one of the great things was that the seniors in the senior center would have a lot of interactions with the preschoolers. And it was just such a wonderful thing to see that. And so, there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of good things that can come out of making those connections between our youth and our seniors. And whether we use it through technology or window visits, I think it's something we can continue to talk about.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Kathleen.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry to stop you, Kathleen.
Hello.
There is also
No.
Commissioner Caldwell, part of the task force. Maybe we want to hear from her.
Perfect. Sorry, Oops, sorry, Commissioner Kowal, you are
That's
like at
okay.
the bottom portion of my screen. So please, yes, Commissioner Kowal. Thank you, Barbara.
Hey, no problem at all. Yeah, I'm Oakland County Commissioner Eileen Coa, represent White Lake and a huge chunk of Waterford, about a third of Waterford that I share with Kristen and Tom Middleton. And I was first elected to the county board in 2002, served from 2003 to 8, and then I was in the state house from 2009 until I was turned out in 2014. Got to work with Sam. So good experience, but then, I've been back on the Board of Commissioners since 2015. And just personally speaking with dealing with seniors, and my parents and my husband's parents are gone now, but I know that we went through hell with my dad when we lost my mom. And I've witnessed that depression in seniors is a whole different ballgame than it is in like a younger person or whatever. And my parents weren't big joiners other than their Irish community, and they had a lot of family to depend on. But they managed to do a pretty good job of kind of isolating themselves over time. So it is very important to promote people to, be out and active. And at that point, we tried to coax my dad to go to the senior center, to go play cards, go do something. And in the midst of the depression that he had going on, it was really, really just tough for him. So I think that probably people being isolated at home can only fuel that kind of depression, and that's something we need to look into.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Commissioner Kowal.
Kristen, we're getting a lot of feedback, I guess, with folks who've got their mics on when the commissioner was talking. I'm getting other feedback. So I guess we turn our mics off unless we're talking?
That would be great. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thanks for letting us know that. So if you aren't talking, please turn your mics on mute. Thank you so much. All right, moving on. Kathleen.
Thank you. So my name's Kathleen Latash, and I'm currently serving a couple of different kind of avenues that I come to the task force through. One is I helped to found an organization called Sage Metro Detroit, which serves LGBTQ older adults in the Metro Detroit area, and serve on that board now. I also
Oop, Kathleen, can you hear? Okay, so it sounds like she can hear us, but I don't think any of us are able to hear her.
Her mic went muted.
I know, Kathleen, would you don't mind trying to get out and dial back in? You have a different, okay, perfect. She has a different sign by her name, and I don't know, sometimes it causes issues. So if...
Alrighty. So as Kathleen dials back on, let's just jump next to Sam.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Sam Singh. I'm the CEO of a firm called Public Policy Associates. We're a research and evaluation firm, been around for close to 30 years. We do work mostly with state and federal government, as well as with foundations and nonprofit organizations. We usually take a look at their programming. We help them do evaluation of their initiatives, as well as a variety of different research projects. We're currently working right now with the county, more so on budget related activities and financial related activities, but excited about potentially working with the group here. And just very quickly, I before joining the firm here, used to be the mayor in the city of East Lansing. Was a state representative with Commissioner Kowal for 6 years, and then used to run the Michigan Nonprofit Association, where we represented about 1,200 charities throughout the state, and did a number of work with a group of foundations. And so excited to be here and look forward to learning from the group and then helping however we can be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sam. Looking forward to having you work alongside of us. Thank you. Alrighty, next up, Daniel.
My name is Dan Quinn, and I work for Sam at Public Policy Associates, where I am the director of education policy for the firm. Most of my work is in the K-12 and higher education sphere, but part of this conversation is organizational planning, and I have a considerable amount of experience in organizational development and organizational planning to help support Sam on this committee.
Excellent. Well, welcome. Looking forward to working with you as well. Thank you so much. Alrighty, next up we have Kathleen's back.
Hi.
We can hear you.
So I think I left. I come to the task force with mainly through my organizing hat of serving LGBTQ older adults. I helped found an organization called Sage Metro Detroit, which is currently in operation serving LGBTQ older adults, and currently serve on the board of that organization. I'm also on the Commission of Services to Aging, serving in my second term, and representing Region 1B, which is Area Agency on Aging 1B's service area. And then lastly, I also reside in the city of Ferndale, and I'm pretty active with my local community. And we recently did the Communities for a Lifetime assessment process. And I think two things I want to share in terms of suggestions and additions that were asked for. One is that when we did our Communities for a Lifetime assessment here in the city of Ferndale, one of the ways that we reached out to seniors was by checking the absentee voter list. And we found that we were able to access 1,639 of the 1,800 seniors with that mailing address. And we're able to direct mail with a self-addressed stamped envelope, kind of old school, but we got 500 surveys back from that, which was a huge response rate. So we really felt like we did a good job of reaching seniors who might not otherwise be reached. And then my second point is that LGBTQ older adults are significantly more likely to be socially isolated because they're more likely to live alone, and they're a lot less likely to have adult children to care for them. So we're really seeing an increase in need at Sage Metro Detroit and looking to reach those isolated seniors. So thank you so much for having me on the task force. I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kathleen. We're looking forward to having you with us as well. Alrighty, moving on to Tom. Tom Hardesty. All right, in the meantime, we're going to move on to next, which is going to be Cameron McClure.
Hello, this is Tom.
Oh. Hello, Tom. Could you give
Sorry
us
about
just
that. I was double muted on my phone and on the system.
No problem.
Tom Hardesty, I manage the Oakland County Homeland Security and Emergency Management Division, which includes our Emergency Operations Center, which is overseeing our response and assistance around the county with COVID-19. Also happen to be a one parent who's in his middle 80s and still living alone, and a 76-year-old mother-in-law with dementia who lives with us. So.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Looking forward to having you join us. Next, Cam.
Okay, I really am Cameron McClure, not Linda Carter, just in case you came in late. I am presently the chairperson of the Oakland County Senior Advisory Council, and we report directly to David Coulter, our county executive. I also, when Kristen was elected county commissioner, interviewed with her, and she selected me as her District 5 representative. So there are 21 Senior Advisory Council members that report up to David Coulter, and they also interface with their county commissioner. And hopefully that's if I'm seeing 2 or 3 county commissioners on the line with me, but they also interface with the county commissioner. We, like in District 5, I interface with the Jewish Community Center, the Waterford Community Center, and the newly created West Bloomfield Community Center. So I interact with those senior centers just like my counterparts are supposed to do in their senior centers. And so we have a unique relationship. We also work very, very closely with AAA 1B. Jim can attest to that. So senior issues, yes, we are quite concerned. And what we try to do is give feedback to our commissioners, give feedback to David Coulter, provide feedback to our senior centers and to our seniors in general. One of the big things that we look at is communications. Okay, in other words, are our seniors getting timely communications? And of course, we're all over the map. We have some that are technology savvy, and we've got a bunch of them that aren't. So it provides a unique situation. And of course, this when Kristen invited me on this council, I guess I come with a different perspective. I look at me as a conduit. As far as being able to get information out from this task force out to the folks on the ground, like our senior centers. Like Kristen will tell you, our Waterford Senior Center is doing some very unique things now that they've been shut down. And with the senior center shut down because of COVID-19, that's made things even more difficult than they already are, for those senior centers that utilize those facilities. And our senior centers are doing some very unique things. Our Meals on Wheels is one of the ways that a number of the senior centers that operate Meals on Wheels, the drivers interact with those seniors that are homebound. Okay, so this is a very trying and very unique times. I'm happy that I've been invited to join the council, and I'll figure out how we can work with you guys. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Cam. Looking at having you with us on the task force. Next up, Amy.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're just about at the afternoon mark. My name is Amy Page. I'm the Chief Clinical Officer at Area Agency on Aging 1B. We, through this COVID-19 period, Jim and his group has been very active and doing a really good job at keeping a pulse on the communities we serve with seniors' needs and the impact that they're seeing. I know I shared some survey and data information with Barbara, I think it was yesterday. So when the time comes, we feel free and would invite this group to kind of take a look at our survey results and the data pulled. For a couple things, well, first, I do have 2 little children, so if you see them running behind me, try to ignore them, and I'm going to try to keep myself on mute so there's not a lot of feedback that you guys hear. But I would echo a few things that have already been said, is the friendly reassurance calls. Those have been highly received, and we've gotten great feedback from those friendly reassurance calls to those that we place those phone calls out to. I think statistically, we've seen at least 2 calls a week, 2 to 3 calls a week to that minimum. We've seen that mark be the threshold where seniors start to feel that more personal connection to kind of combat that loneliness. Anything less than that 1 to 2 calls a week tends to doesn't tend to we see that improvement. So I wanted to share that. Also mentioned is those personal connections through the window visits, the telephone calls like mentioned, or any FaceTime or other technology where they can see that face-to-face interaction. I think just in meetings that I've been in, when I see, a person's name without the face, it's a little bit difficult. And you see their face and their expressions and those nonverbals, it just makes all that kind of personal connection, which has been nice. So if there's a way we could do that, that would be of a great benefit. Of course, we know with seniors and older adults, sometimes they don't come with that type of technology knowledge that they would need to actually use some of these systems. Possibly some senior support groups. Of course, they'd have to be virtual. So perhaps if we would be able to facilitate something like this, or some sort of support group that they can go and express how they're feeling and receive some get some advice on how they could maybe maintain their routine at home to kind of keep them active and moving would be a benefit. There's also a group called RSVP, or Retired Seniors Volunteer Program. They have been also pretty instrumental and active trying to stay connected with seniors and trying to make those friendly reassurance calls. So they may be a group we would want to reach out to. A couple other ideas is, and of course, each senior has their own hobbies that they might like to do, but maybe delivering some hobby kits that they can do at home, whether it's stitching or knitting, even if it's doing a puzzle, but maybe delivering some sort of hobby kit could give them something to do during the day, maybe of benefit. I know a partner, AAA, over at the Senior Alliance, which covers part of Wayne County. They've been trying to do this, it's almost like a realistic or lifelike dog or cat. Of course, it's not for everybody, they said, but those that they have tried it with have seen a tremendous positive impact in having those seniors feel also connected and having this connection with this lifelike dog that they, can pet or talk to, take care of. So it's been small over in Wayne County, but they did a short presentation on it, and I thought it would just be something to share with the group. Lastly, a large part of our statistic in one of our surveys is that they continued pre-COVID be very connected to their church and other affiliations. So I don't know if keeping that in mind with this task force, if connecting them with different churches or affiliations too might be that good positive reinforcement with them during this time too. So that's what I wanted to share so far. Thank you for inviting me and being part of this group, and I look forward to continuing to participate.
Thank you so much, Amy. We are very happy to have you along with us. Thank you. I'd like to just jump around, and I'd like to have Robert Jones. Mr. Jones, are you still with us? I know that he did have something already scheduled at noon. So in the meantime, we'll move on. And Mr. Jones?
Maybe he left already and his name is still in our system.
Okay. Well, Robert Jones, I'll just share really briefly. Robert Jones is a representative from AT&T. And obviously, as we take a look at, in light of COVID-19 and knowing that seniors are social distancing and things just really aren't as they typically were, having accessibility to technology is going to be a key area that I think that we're going to dive into and look into a little bit more. So having Robert Jones' expertise in the area of internet and broadband and accessibility, I think is going to be a huge component to some of the solutions that we may look at further pursuing. So I look forward to having Robert join us. In the meantime, let's jump on over to Nicole.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nicole Lawson, and I am the Chief Operating Officer of the Oakland Community Health Network. And we are the local public mental health system. So we provide behavioral health care services to about 27,000 Oakland County residents who have intellectual and developmental disabilities, mental illness, serious emotional disturbance, and substance use disorders. We certainly recognize the toll that loneliness and isolation takes on our mental health. And in addition to the seniors we support, many of the people we serve are high risk for COVID-19 due to medical comorbidities and are also experiencing significant loneliness and isolation. So I'm very happy to be an active member of this task force. Look forward to help finding solutions to support seniors in our community. And certainly I'll be looking to take what's developed here and replicating it for other members of our community who are having a similar experience. We've done some outreach with people in our community through phone calls. We've started a letter writing or a pen pal campaign, just to reach out and let people know that we're here. And, you know, even if it's snail mail, give somebody something to look forward to. And then certainly, I think it was Commissioner Lubes who stated earlier, I think a great starting point is just to reach out to the senior community directly and just see what they would like in terms of outreach and support and how that would be best received. So with that, I'm very excited to be here, and it's really nice to meet everybody. Sorry about my camera. I will have it fixed before our next meeting.
No problem. Thank you so much, Nicole. Looking forward to having you with us on the task force as well. Thank you so much. Next, Lisa.
Good morning. My name is, or good afternoon now, I guess. My name is Lisa Mewell. I currently work with Legacy Medical Group in a division called Legacy Senior Connect. But by education, I am a gerontologist and a certified elder care coordinator. I have a fairly lengthy history with Area Agency on Aging 1B. I've also worked with a couple of elder law attorneys as a certified elder care coordinator. One of the things that we are doing at Legacy Medical Group is telehealth. And we've been kind of on the front lines of doing this telehealth so that we could stay in touch with our patients. What we found is what we all know, that our seniors struggle with the technology, especially if we're dealing with seniors with any cognitive decline. And so we have had to hire people to go in and actually be in the facilities and manage the technology portion of it. But it's been really good for the families, and it's been really good for the patients that they have that connection. So it's something that I would like to see moving forward if we can tackle that technology issue. So again, like everyone said, I'm really happy to be here. I'm really happy that I was selected for this and looking forward to the work that we can do.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Looking forward to having you on a task force as well. Moving on, Commissioner Gershenson. No. Alrighty, well, Commissioner Gershenson was just on the call to learn a little bit more about the task force herself. So if there's a time that she's wants to jump on in, I think we'll allow her to do so. But in the meantime, let's move on to Mr. McGuire.
Hello, thank you for the invitation to speak. Aside from many of the things that have been mentioned before, one of the things that I think about in terms of social isolation and our service delivery system for seniors, really senior centers are at the front line of providing the kinds of programming and outreach that really helps with addressing social isolation. And so I think about the time when we get to the point where we may be able to start reopening senior centers and reopening programs, and the kinds of things that senior centers are going to need to do to safely resume some of their programming. I think about things like, will there need to be thermometer testers to test people before they enter the senior center? Of course, the usual availability of PPE, plexiglass shield to shield some of the face-to-face interactions that you have. Even simple things like, signing into a senior center. We don't really want people all using the same pen to sign their name in. Maybe we need to move to touchless registration systems for senior centers. I think of some of these things being necessary in our not too distant future. And the problem is exacerbated by the senior centers in the shutdown are losing a tremendous amount of the revenue that they need to continue operating. A lot of programs have membership fees or user fees. They do fundraising. All that revenue is now lost. so they're going to face increased demands and costs to reopen and having lesser revenues. And so I think about some way to try to help have a successful reopening of senior centers when the time comes that will be able to be something that we can return to our communities.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Jim, and we're happy to have you alongside with this task force. Next up, let's hear from EJ.
Hi, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is EJ Wyden, and I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Oakland County. So I've been working in and around technology for about 25 years or so, and I helped get the Oakland County workforce mobilized. But in particular for this task force, my parents live in Oakland County in an assisted living facility. My mom has a mild form of dementia. My dad has some physical limitations, but it's interesting watching the transformation of their experiences with this. My dad is someone I've been able to teach how to use Zoom with. And so we just did a Zoom call this morning with him. My mom can participate with it, but I also learned about the type of devices he has to use. I gave him a laptop that he is not able to physically turn on because of a lack of dexterity. So he can only do Zoom through his fingertips or through his phone, which doesn't create the same experience. But I've tried different things with my parents as well. So I drop off a care package every week. We do Zoom calls a couple days a week. We do a call outside the window to try and interact with them on the phone. And that is actually their favorite thing compared to Zoom. They love that call from outside the building. But I also watch my neighbors who are retired living on their own in this community. And then I have family members who have people in nursing homes and other ailments like this. And I've been hearing at this time of year especially, they've tried to deliver technology to facilities and have someone work with them, and people don't understand how to enable the technology to even help those people to interact. So people are missing their grandchild's graduations that are virtual or other things like that because we don't have a way to train them on the technology if they're not technically savvy, or the people to help them. So trying to bridge some of those gaps and how to make these tools easier for people to use, that those of us that have it can bring that to people. So I set up all the Zoom meetings that my parents join and my dad gets joining. My mom's not capable of it, but those are the kinds of things I'd like to see happen and figure out how to make this technology work better. Or even one of the things I talk a lot about is voice activation and voice assistance. How could we deploy things with an Alexa technology or something like that to make this better for them that they talk? But just happy to be a part of this and share some of these experiences and learn and take in those experiences that others have too. Like I said, when I learned that my goddaughter's grandfather missed her graduation, even though they delivered technology because people couldn't figure out how to connect it, it's just one of those things that we have to figure out how to train the people who are involved with them as well on the technology because they may not understand it. It's not enough to just deliver a laptop or a tablet.
Well, thank you so much. We look forward to having you join us on the task force as well. So thank you, EJ. Next up, we have Ms. Curry, who is calling in as a volunteer who has expressed interest in this task force. Welcome, Ms. Curry.
Hey, how are you? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. You're good to go.
Okay. I'll tell you one reason why I'm interested in joining this task force, because what can I call myself? A young senior. I still drive. I know technology. I was in a virtual conference this weekend, but the transformation to being a senior is a real thing. And the issue of health has to be linked with nutrition. That's an important subject that needs to be on the table. Plus that isolation sneaks up on you. This year has been a year that has been different for me because I talked to my friends that are beginning to have health challenges and many, many other issues that are placed before them with retirement. For one thing, I have to say, as a team, not only as a task force, but we must bring in our communities and our families to help seniors to stay connected. If we have to have a call center, if we have to go face to face, or have a 24-hour phone connection. Because lastly, I know what my children did for me when COVID-19 made a crisis. My daughter, who lives in Canton, I live in Wixom, but the one that lives in Canton, she came to get me, and I stayed during the week with her to keep me from getting into loneliness or an isolated mode. Because I'm going to tell you one thing, isolation yields to boredom, which may yield to depression. The link, well, this is the last thing I'm going to say, the link with being lonely, it's connecting in the form of relationships. So talk to people who are seniors, you know. Let your churches get involved and communicate to keep that relationship present. That's all I have to say.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Miss Curry. Your wisdom and perspective is very valuable, and I look forward to working alongside of you as well. So thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, I think I got everybody. Is there anybody that I missed? Okay, so I'm just gonna briefly just kind of give a little insight about myself. I represent District 5, which is Keiko Harbor, Sylvan Lake, Orchard Lake, and portions of Waterford. As Commissioner Kowal had previously said, her, myself, and Commissioner Middleton share Waterford. And in addition to, I share portions of West Bloomfield with Commissioner Gershenson. I am super excited to be on this task force and work alongside incredible people who come from so many different valuable areas when we take a look at our seniors. Just to kind of give you a little background, around Christmas time, this past Christmas in 2019, I had received a news article from a constituent. And the news article was focusing on senior loneliness, especially in light of the holidays and the new year. And I was really touched by that news article because, let's face it, this is an area that has been a pressing problem. And given our seniors are our most vulnerable population, taking a look at what we can do to increase their connectedness with our communities and services, and most importantly, their family, loved ones, and friends. Long story short, after talking with this constituent, one of the things I heard from them was that, number one, they're active and they want to be connected to the services that are within their community. They just didn't know what kinds of services were out there. And number two, a lot of their neighbors were snowbirds. So in the wintertime, it became especially a lonely time because a lot of their friends and even family aren't within, their neighborhood or residing right next door. So one of the solutions that we had put into place was we had given her some information on the West Bloomfield Senior Center, got her to get a membership, and then bam, COVID hit. And so when the pandemic hit, I picked up the phone, called our chairman of the board, Commissioner Woodward, and asked, what can we do? What can we do right now? We knew that there were things that we wanted to take a look at with our seniors, but this, better than no other time, we needed to do something now. So I am so excited to have all of you be a part of this task force, and I am eager to look at the solutions and start dissecting what we can do now. I think I've shared this with some of you that, I love task forces. I love hearing feedback and input and learning about all these great things, but I also am really adamant on we need to execute. this is a pressing issue now, and in light of COVID-19, it's just exacerbated even more. So my intent really is to hit the ground running, come up with those short-term goals and execute them, take a look at those intermediate goals, and then obviously our long-term goals. But if you think that we're moving fast on this task force, we are. And I'm really excited and eager to have all of you be a part of this. Before we move on, I wanted to just give a brief little overview of one thing, and then as we move to the second agenda item, we actually have our Chief Deputy, Hillary Chambers, here with us to talk a little bit more about this. So back on April 29th, the Board of Commissioners had passed a resolution accepting $219 million in funding from the Federal Coronavirus Aid and Economic Security's CARES Act. So my intent of leading into our next agenda item is to have an overview so we all have an idea of what are some of the things that are covered under the CARES Act when we start taking a look at executing solutions in regards to increasing social connectedness with our seniors, and not just direct impact with our seniors, but also take a look at what we can do with our senior centers around Oakland County. I know Mr. McClure did an amazing job at getting a spreadsheet of a lot of our senior centers, all of our senior centers across Oakland County. So, and in addition to looking at the direct impact solutions that we can have on seniors, I also think it's going to be a really great idea to also consider looking at how we can help support the services that our senior centers are presently implementing. And in addition to taking a look at how we can bring in our business partnerships and people within our communities, I would love, to take more look at how we can, have potentially businesses open up more senior friendly business hours, and whether that might be, 1 to 2 hours a week that are reserved specifically for seniors. I would love to look at the possibility of doing that. I know already there are some grocery stores and some businesses who had started that. I think it's great and incredible, and I would love to look at how we can further support and maintain that, because I really do think that's going to be a significant piece as we move into the future. So again, I want to thank everybody for sharing their perspectives and input. So thank you so much. Is there any other questions before we move on to the next agenda item? All right, very well. Thank you so much. As we move on to our last agenda item, we're going to have our Chief Deputy, Hillary Chambers, talk with us about the CARES Act. So welcome, Hillary.
Hi, thank you so much. Well, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate being invited to join you. I know that this has been an issue of importance for Commissioner Nelson since the fall. I think we had our first conversation about this issue, and we had no idea really what we would be facing today. So let me talk a bit about what we know about the CARES Act funding that the county has received. So, and this is, a report that I made to the Board of Commissioners several weeks ago when they voted to first accept the money. But it is a federal program that we were eligible for as a county over 500,000 people. So that's why you'll see in the state, there's just a handful of counties like us who have received this type of direct funding from the federal government. And you probably have also seen some debate and discussion among our legislators at the federal level who want to continue to support local governments and are trying to see if they may come up with a specific program to help local communities as well. But unlike most federal programs, this was a transfer of these funds based on our population to the County of Oakland, and the U.S. Treasury Department put out guidelines that everybody, the state and the counties that are of a large size have to follow. So the guidelines, were relatively broad. And then since that point, they've been putting out FAQs, responding to different areas of interest to folks. So as you can imagine, the primary purpose of the funds are, COVID-related pandemic response. So any expenditures that the county has made regarding PPE, food distribution, all of those kind of things that you've seen us do in the first weeks of the pandemic. Expenses that were incurred due to the public health emergency. For county governments, these funds cannot be used for revenue replacement. They also, they can't be used for items that were already in our budget as of March 27th, the day that it was approved. So that's a bright line for them. They don't want it to be used in any form for revenue replacement for governments. There is a category of what they call second order effects of the emergency. That would mean providing support to those suffering from employment or business interruption. Though that's basically the language that allowed the county to proceed with a grant program for small businesses who were suffering during the stay-at-home order. And so we have expended up to $14 million to help bolster our small businesses. So besides the general guidelines, they gave some examples of eligible expenses, indicating that it was a non-exclusive list, and then some specific examples of things that were certainly not eligible. So we as a county have hired some outside expertise, actually a company that has been working as part of the Tiger team that the U.S. Treasury Department set up. So they have, very good information and are able to get answers to us. So we've hired an outside consultant because while we have the money and the guidance is, use your best judgment and follow these guidelines, and the money has to be spent by the end of the year or returned to the Treasury, you are subject to an audit by the Treasury IG at some point next year. So we want to make sure that we have all of the rationale, that we follow the guidelines, and we have the documentation as to every expenditure. So besides the ones that I've talked about in terms of, very specifically medical expenses, public health expenses, all of those types of very specific COVID-related expenses, and also the expenses of our county government in terms of teleworking of our employees, the procedures that we've had to put in place in terms of safety protocols and screenings and changing around our facilities, steps that the jail may need to take to change around their facilities. Those types of expenditures are clearly seen as allowable under the CARES Act, or what is called in our case the Coronavirus Relief Fund. So really the next steps for us are to evaluate what's eligible, and then to work with the Board of Commissioners in terms of the appropriate procedures and regular order in terms of seeking approval of using these resources for the expenditures that are a priority for the county. I will mention that the board did approve yesterday a $10 million grant program that will be targeted towards nonprofit 501c3 organizations operating in the county. And we were working with the United Way of Southeast Michigan to administer that program with an oversight committee made up of board members. And so we hope to have that program launched by June 4th. So that would be an opportunity for nonprofits, for example, that serve senior citizens could apply for funding through that program. We've also expressed our view that we would like to appropriate funds to the local CDTs who have not yet received direct assistance from the federal government, who also have COVID-related expenses. And they would be under the same guidelines as we are, but I think they could look at, items like what would be necessary at their senior recreation centers to get them equipped under the new procedures. They could look at, expenses that they have to undertake as a community now to respond to the pandemic. And so we hope to bring that proposal to the board in the next week, in the next weeks. Some other things that, like, for example, like safety procedures that would be now necessary at a library or community center. What we've been doing as we're getting questions from people is, actually taking down the questions and then kind of confirming with our outside consultants, is this an appropriate use? Where do you see this in the guidelines? You know, and just very carefully, being very careful about, you know, ensuring that because the guidelines are not, you know, you're not getting pre-approval before you spend the money. We're trying to be very careful to make sure that we meet the guidelines. Another avenue that is interesting is clearly they draw out specifically expenses to facilitate distance learning, including technology improvements in connection with school closings. You know, that's one specific item that they call out that would be an allowable expense. I thought that was interesting. I'm not sure if that could be expanded to include, you know, that type of expenditure as it related to a non-school expense. Also, you can very clearly set up a program to assist residents with overdue rent or mortgage, utility fees, funeral costs. Those types of things are specifically called out. We will probably be doing that through our CDBG funds, though. Bringing a proposal to the board in terms of using our COVID CDBG funds to help with rental and mortgage assistance. So those are some of the guidelines. I think, you know, probably the best thing to do is, you know, as you all are generating ideas in terms of what you think might be important or useful, you know, for us to kind of work together and to get kind of a pre-approval sense from our consultants as to whether that is something that may be covered, and then you know, how that type of program might operate.
Well, thank you so much, Chief Deputy Chambers. Does anybody have any questions? See one right now, Mr. McClure.
Yes. Hi, Hillary.
Hi.
It's like I said, one of the things that the Senior Advisory Council has is a conduit to our senior centers.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to, and if you have been to any of our senior centers, we're all over the map. We're from the Taj Mahal at the older people's all the way down to where they're in what was a library room. So across Oakland County, there's a tremendous disparity as far as the facilities that some of our seniors are able to go to. Some of the things that you were talking about, it would really be good. You've got the 9,000 foot stuff that you could give us. Here it is. This is how we interpret it, and then give us something that we can either give to our senior center directors to get actual feedback, you know, because I can tell you what I think, but what really helps is the seniors themselves telling you what they think. Okay, and where we've been able to operate is the conduit is if there's a question from AAA 1B or something. We've been involved in surveys where we have been able to get the stuff directly to the people, even on Meals on Wheels, where we've delivered surveys from the Meals on Wheels drivers to the folks. The things that you're talking about that specifically impact our senior centers is information that you know, you need to be able to give us clear direction so that we can give it to them, and then they can come back and say, yes, this is what we need. Okay, and then what do you say? You would have a documentation, I suppose, that you're providing the funding and the kinds of support that they need to actually be able to interconnect with our seniors. So, you know, it seems like we have a whole lot of stuff. To me, this is a big elephant. And the only way I know to eat an elephant is to take a strategic bite somewhere. And in other words, where can we get the low hanging fruit? Where can we make some immediate impact and then start spreading it out? Because this is a huge problem. You know, we're talking about seniors in general, you know, and there was someone online that talked about seniors making things more available to them. We spend most of our money in the community that we live in. The other thing that a lot of folks don't realize is we vote. So if I'm not dead, I'm voting. So how do you keep our seniors here? We're a major part of Oakland County. I guess as every year goes by, there's more of us, and we're not going away. The COVID has kind of made things kind of difficult, but for all of us that are left, it's going to be important that and I'm a senior, Okay, so I got a vested interest in this whole thing, is that we know that Oakland County is doing everything they can to keep us connected. So the things that you have, the money that you're talking about, being able to have some kind of clear direction on what it is, you know, you're telling me you got this big bag of money, but then there are strings attached, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So the one thing that Oakland County is notorious for is we do things by the book, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so the thing is, if there's actual funds that are available that could be available to our senior centers, it's really good to be able to have some clear direction. And one of the big problems that I have is making sure that whoever is given information is vetted. Because right now there's all kinds of crap going on where seniors are being scammed and they need to know who they're dealing with. Okay, I don't answer my cell phone. I mean, not my cell phone, my landline unless I know who's calling. Okay, and that's a shame because there's a lot we're trying to do, but we need to make sure that our seniors know that wherever they're getting this information from, it's coming from vetted sources. You know.
Can I just add two things in terms of a response? And I agree. I mean, any steps that would be necessary to educate seniors on terms of safety considerations that they need to particularly keep in mind in the next weeks and months, which I think is something that we very much have tried to emphasize. I mean, even as the economy reopens, our seniors are going to have to be extra careful. And I don't want anyone to think just because, you know, they're in a different category in terms of steps that they need to take, even if other people are able to go out and do certain things. We have to be particularly careful with our seniors, I think. So I think any education that we need to do regarding the reopening, health orders, safety protocols, I mean, those types of things would all be covered by the CARES Act. They're very clear about, you know, informing the public about compliance with health orders and safety protocols. But let me just ask, in terms of the senior centers, I mean, is that the main focus in terms of a conduit for seniors in the county and their activity to ensure that the senior center operations are equipped to come back online with some type of programming for our seniors?
Well, the senior centers are definitely a primary contact, but you know, you have the churches, you have a lot of other organizations, but to me, it seems like if you can create some kind of template, something that we can replicate, and to me, it's kind of like you got to start somewhere. And what better place than our senior centers who interact directly with our seniors all the time. There are a lot of other organizations, the churches, schools, but if we can come up with some kind of a template that can be replicated to say that we know that this is tried and true, and then we can wind up then, you know, like you say, churches are doing things. There are other organizations within Oakland County and groups that are doing things, but we need to make sure everybody is doing it based on what the guidelines are. But
okay, but when you say, and then we can go on, but when you say template, do you mean like a template in terms of protocols that need to be in place? Because we are doing what we call here a reopening kit.
Yes.
Small businesses. It'll be an actual bin that includes like the first installment of PPE, signs go on the floor for social distancing, you know, all of the protocols. And we're going to have a place on our website that has all the protocols. We're also doing the same for our faith community, so that they can come and pick up this PPE for their staff and different protocols that we're pushing out to them. So I think if it's protocols in terms of safety, we can definitely offer that up to senior centers as well, if that would be helpful. But I think,
yeah,
go ahead.
What I'm saying is that the senior centers right now, you cut off one of the main things that a lot of seniors look forward to is being able to interact with their fellow seniors at the senior centers. And the problem that you've got is the senior centers, it's not one size fits all, you know, so, but the protocols would give the senior center something to be able to take a look at And then who do they get back to say, we need to customize? OPC, the Older People's Commission, is like the Taj Mahal of senior centers, if you've ever been out there. But I've been into some of them, like I said, that are in one room, and it's like a one-room schoolhouse. Okay, so it's good to have the protocols. Then they need to be able to, who do they get with? You know, I mean, you know, that communications is what I'm getting at. Is you put out the guidelines of protocols, then who do I go to? Do I go to Cam? Do I go to Hillary? Do I go to Kristen? Okay, so that they can work their way through what they need to work through. But the senior centers are a good place to start, you know, from my experience.
Sure, and just to kind of clarify that as we move into our next meeting, a lot of the information, the purpose of kind of just hearing a little bit more insight of the solutions that, you know, you guys have been thinking about, you know, leading into this first meeting. Our goal is to generate a document that incorporates all of the suggestions and ideas and potential solutions today, and bring that to the table at our next task force meeting. And with Hillary sharing some of the insight with the COVID CARES Act money, what we are going to see right off the bat, there's going to be things that we've discussed that are going to be, you know, for sure, I'm pretty confident this could be covered with, you know, the CARES Act money, but there's also most likely going to be recommendations that incorporate solutions outside of COVID funding, and that's okay too. So I hear what you're saying, Cam. It is very important, which I think as we lead into our next meeting, we'll have a better idea. I love the fact that you're looking for that criteria and, you know, that very concrete, specific information. I think that what you will find at our next meeting is the whole point of just kind of getting some feedback right up front now is to go full force into that next meeting with, hey, these are some of the things that, you know, we're pretty confident that are going to be covered under the COVID monies, and these are things that aren't potentially going to be covered. But either way, we'll then take that information at our next meeting and get even more insight on. But definitely hear me when I say the solutions that we talk about within this task force, most definitely, most likely are going to be solutions outside of COVID-19 funding. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah, well, and I know that not everything is dependent on this COVID money. There's a lot of things that we already have that are already funded that we may just have to either readdress, plus the volunteer stuff. You know, there's a lot of stuff that folks want to do and are willing to do it with no extra money involved in it, other than the fact that they're doing something in the community. So it's all of the above, but there are some inherent costs to stuff. But the things that are already funded, we just need to make sure that they're better applied, I guess is better used. Okay, that's what I'm looking at.
Absolutely. And Cameron, I am so glad you are on this task force, because your perspectives and thoughts, we want and we need. So thank you so much, Cameron. Kathleen, did you have a question, comment?
Yes, it kind of relates to what Cam was saying. So I really appreciate hearing about wanting to pull in the faith communities, because we know that a lot of people don't go to their senior centers. They may not go because they don't feel welcome. They may not feel like they fit in there. There are very specific cultural populations within our county that may go through their own cultural, you know, community centers, through their churches or congregations. And so I'd like us, as we're thinking about recommendations for how to best serve our older adults, to make sure that we're including all the people who don't normally go through those channels. I'm thinking about some of our ethnic and racial community centers and cultural population hubs. What are those needs? And are there some culturally specific ways that we need to be reaching people? And are we making sure that all the information that we're providing is in multiple languages? So I didn't hear anyone on this task force is representing specific populations, other than myself that is kind of representing the LGBTQ end of things. But I didn't hear other kind of very specific populations, and I'd love to see some of that expand.
Absolutely. And we can definitely give you the information that we put forth in the resolution that kind of breaks down the different representatives on the task force. So definitely, thank you. Is there anybody else who has any questions, comments? Okay, excellent. So we're going to move on to our next portion of the agenda. But before I do that, I just would like to say that, again, to reiterate what I had just said a moment ago in regards to taking the information today, everything that was shared today, and in addition to, I know some of you had emailed some solutions leading in to this meeting. So what we're going to do is we're going to compile all of these solutions. And here's the thing, as the wheels are turning now, you're going to come up, just by the nature of being a human being, you're going to come up with some more ideas and some more thoughts before our next meeting. Those are obviously welcomed as well. But the task that we have leading into the next meeting will really be putting all this information and all these potential solutions into one document. And that's going to help drive our next task force meeting. And in addition to, I would love to share, I know Amy from AAA 1B had provided some really amazing information in regards to a study that was conducted at the onset of COVID-19 back in March, which really was a needs assessment that reached out to aging center organizations. And in addition to, I'd like to have some information be presented in regard to the 2019 needs assessment that was conducted throughout the state of Michigan, because I think the value of the information that is in that specific assessment is a really great document to utilize in regards to looking at what our seniors wanted in regards to looking at social isolation, and in addition to enrichment activities. Now, again, the pandemic was not existing last year. However, I really think that the information is still very valuable, because what you're going to find is that a lot of the needs that seniors spoke about last year, they're still the same needs now. It's just going to take more out of the box thinking in regards to how we execute and implement some of these solutions. So again, I just want to say thank you all so very much for your time today. And I really would like to look at having our next meeting be scheduled next week. I don't anticipate needing to meet every single week as we move through this task force, but I definitely think in the very beginning, to keep this momentum going, to continuously have these conversations and potentially look at within the next couple of weeks, some short-term solutions that we can begin executing. So is there any other further business to come before the task force today?
Just one thing, if we have any ideas, should we send them to Barbara? I mean, there's got to be some place to if we have anything, mail them to Barbara, correct?
Absolutely. Okay. That would be a really great idea. Barbara, do you want to share any insight on that?
Yes, definitely, please. But before I start, I saw Commissioner Cowell wanted to say something. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Barbara. Commissioner Colwell.
Thank you. Yes, I do believe we have somebody that's involved that's a gerontologist or affiliated with such, but I was just thinking a good way maybe to seniors regularly see their doctors. I think that's just, you get older, you have more ailments. So I was thinking that maybe being in touch with the medical community could help us reach out to seniors as well. So I just want to throw that in there. Thank you.
Thank you. I definitely think that's a great idea. And in fact, I just had somebody from one of our local hospitals in Rochester reach out yesterday, and they would love to present at one of our task force meetings to kind of give that perspective. So absolutely, Commissioner Colwell, I couldn't agree more. Alrighty, if there isn't any further business to come before the task force, without any objection, I declare the meeting adjourned at 12:49 p.m.